Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about a telephone call between Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It is Donald Trump who called Prime Minister Modi yesterday. Surprisingly, there isn't any readout either from the State Department or from the Ministry of External Affairs about the content or the duration of their phone call. So I'm going to just show you how we know what we know about this phone call. So first, we learned about it from essentially Prime Minister Modi. This is what he tweeted, and he said, "Had a very warm and engaging conversation with President Trump. We reviewed the progress in our bilateral relations and discussed regional and international developments. India and the US will continue to work together for global peace, stability, and prosperity." The last sentence is, I don't know what to make of the last sentence. If they had said, "We concluded that India and the US will continue to work together for global peace," then it would have meant that that was part of it. So I don't know whether he's just saying that this is our intention as his intention and nothing to do with the phone call. But whatever it is, it's just a vague, generic statement. If you go back and look at all statements issued by the Ministry of External Affairs in India, this is how they write about it. When they have nothing to say or don't want to say what was discussed, this is what they say, that, oh, we discussed bilateral issues, we discussed matters of common interest, and we discussed regional and global issues, and we decided that we will work together for the good of the world and the good of the planet and the good of the universe, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, there was this statement from the newly shall we say, confirmed US ambassador to India, Ambassador Sergio Gore. This is what he said. President Trump with Prime Minister Modi. President Trump spoke with Prime Minister Modi this morning. A great call between two friends. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterated his support for the president's efforts to bring peace to Ukraine. So there's a slight difference. While Prime Minister Modi does not talk about Ukraine and does not talk about Trump as a friend in that tweet, which was a big deal was made out of it in the Indian press, saying that, oh, the ambassador says that Modi is his great friend. So in India, usually the media is looking for whatever ways in which they can praise Prime Minister Modi. And so this is what they basically came down to, that Ambassador Gore really said that they are two great friends, a great call between two friends, and that's all that the media was talking about, and that Narendra Modi did not refer to Trump as his friend. Anyway, if that makes sense to them, good for them. But to me, it was interesting that Gore emphasized that India was the reason why this particular statement reiterated his support for the president's effort is because there's a lot of speculation here in Washington and elsewhere, because Donald Trump has not tweeted anything at all. He's not said anything. There is no statement issued either by the White House or the Ministry of External Affairs or anybody else as to what the meaning or what was the purpose of. There are speculations, and there are speculations, as you can see, that I will be talking about. But let me say what the speculations are. The speculations are that perhaps the idea of C5, Core 5, that's everybody in Washington is talking about it right now, that the recently published the National Security Strategy of the United States essentially had a longer version in which the idea of Core 5 was floated, but it did not make it to the final cut. I have done two shows on the national security strategy of the United States. You can go to any of my YouTube channels and you can see them there. There's one in Hindi and one in English. Then there was this discussion that perhaps there was discussion about the Quad Summit. India is the chair of the Quad this year, and there was supposed to be a heads of state meeting. This will be the first meeting since 2021, I think, since Biden introduced the leadership summit of the Quad, that the leaders of the Quad will not meet in 2026. The last time they met was here, actually, in Delaware, in Wilmington, in 2024. actually in Biden's house, about roughly 10 miles from where I live. That was the last time the Quad leaders met. And since then, the Prime Minister of Japan has changed, and also the President of the United States. And these people have not met as a Quad. So that was the second thing. The third thing was that people were speculating that perhaps it is perhaps that there were some issues with the trade agreement that needed to be finalized, and it had to be done at the highest level. So both Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump got on the phone basically to hash out some particular specific details. Uh, uh, so I think that is probably one issue. But if that was the case, then there would have been some announcement saying that, okay, the negotiations are moving faster and forward, and the principals or the leaders have already spoken about it. So there were some of these discussions as to what's going on, whether it is about the Quad, or is it about CFI? Is it about trade deal? Another speculation that is going on is that Donald Trump is increasingly getting frustrated with Russia on the Russia-Ukraine negotiations. The Europeans are beginning to become a problem for the U.S. And Ukraine is also not fully agreeing to the terms that the United States had proposed on behalf of Russia. And of course, Russia continues to hammer Ukraine, and that creates a lot of publicity problems for Western democracies. So one speculation was that perhaps Donald Trump may have called Prime Minister Modi, asking him to fully cut off relations with Russia, or to put some pressure on Russia, or to talk to Russia. The US has made similar suggestions, even to Xi Jinping, that he talked to Putin and helped the United States move this peace process forward. So that's the speculation here in Washington, that they have perhaps discussed the idea of Core 5, the C5 idea. I will talk about C5 in much more detail shortly. And then they were talking about whether it's about the Quad, or whether it's about Ukraine, or is it about the bilateral trade agreement. None of that has been issued. I'm very curious to know whether the Prime Minister of India raised the issue that Donald Trump is now giving over $600 million of upgrades on the F-16s to Pakistan. Did that issue come up at all in the discussions? And because that would be a matter of great concern to India, and should be, that the United States, since Donald Trump has become president, the amount of military aid that has gone to Pakistan now exceeds $1 billion, because there was one that was given very early, in, I think around January, February, March. Immediately after he became president, Donald Trump had canceled and stopped all foreign aid, suspended all foreign aid except to Israel and to Pakistan. So I wonder whether the Prime Minister raised that issue with Donald Trump, expressing his unhappiness that he's giving military aid to Pakistan. I don't know. So that is the crux of the issue. So let's take a look at this idea of core. So before I talk to you about core 5, uh, I will address some of your questions after I finish my presentation. Before I talk about Core 5, I do want to make a small announcement. Guys, if you look, this is a meeting tomorrow at 11 o'clock New York time, 9:30 p.m. India time. So for many of you who are in India right now, it's already Saturday. So in the evening for you, we will have a Zoom meeting with members. We will talk about whatever you want to talk about. And if you have some interesting questions about my visit to Beijing, to Shenzhen, to South Korea, I went to Seoul, I went to Hong Kong. So we can talk about that. I have more travels planned, and we can discuss those issues. I'm giving a big talk tomorrow in Virginia, tomorrow night, on India, and we could talk about that. So please don't forget to come. The link to the Zoom meeting is already in the posts. So go to the YouTube channel, you will see post, click there, and you will be able to join me. Another small announcement that I want to make is that India has launched a very important magazine called India's World. Take a look at it. And so I had an article today that was published in India's World. It's called From Pivot to Perplexity, East Asia Faces a Mercurial America. So I talk about essentially the ideas that I heard from scholars in China, in South Korea, in Hong Kong. I met with Japanese, I met with some Russian scholars who were there at the conference. So it was a very global input. So I got to spend a lot of time with them, staying in the same hotels, walking, going for dinners, lunches, breakfast, also other than just the conference. So I got to hear many perspectives, and some of those I have shared in that article. All right, so let's come back to the idea of core five. So America is required by law, the American president is required by law to publish a national security strategy. Within 3 months of him becoming president, he has to basically let the Congress know and everybody in the country as to what are the philosophical foundations of his foreign policy, what does he see is America's national security interests, and what are the threats, and how is he going to go ahead and make sure that all of America's interests are being protected and safeguarded. So Donald Trump published his national security strategy, and as I said, I've done two shows on it, one in English and one in Hindi. You can just go and watch the details. So I'm not going to talk about the NSS. What I'm going to talk about is this idea that has leaked and has floated out there, and people are talking about it, that there was an idea called Core 5 in the national security document, but in the earlier version of it, but it was left out. And so when White House was asked about it, they said that there is no hidden or secret version of the NSS floating around. This is it. This is what guides our foreign policy. So they did not deny that the idea was there in earlier drafts. They just said that this is the final version and there's nothing in it. So what is the Core 5 idea? So the Core 5 idea is essentially Washington expressing the same frustration with global governance that India has been doing for several years now. Both Prime Minister Modi and Dr. Jaishankar repeatedly say that the UN is not doing what it's supposed to do, the World Bank is not doing, G20 is not doing. In fact, the past 2, 3 years, G20 and G7 summits have all been about Ukraine, and they have forgotten that there is another world out there. The problems of the global south are not being addressed. There are other issues that need to be addressed. So the leaders of the world are just obsessed with Ukraine, and that's because institutions like G7 and G20 are dominated by Europeans essentially. Both in G7 and G20, most European countries get a double vote because even European Union is invited and major countries from Europe. So G7 basically has Britain, France, Germany, and Italy. So there are 4 European countries, one Asian country, Japan, one and two North American, US and Canada. In fact, I have been advocating for many years that it should become G8. India should have become part of it. India is a liberal democracy, and it is the fifth biggest economy in the world. It should be part of G7. It's definitely double the size of Italy and Canada. So why is India not in it? And then Russia used to be in it for a while, and it was removed after its invasion of Crimea. In fact, Donald Trump has regretted and said this was a mistake to remove Russia from G8. And so Donald Trump has actually floated the idea of a G9 to keep the G7 as it is and bring Russia and China into it. I'm surprised that he didn't think of India at that time. He could have said G10. Uh, G10 sounds nicer than G9. But there was an Indian film with Mithun Chakravarti in which he was Gunmaster G9 was his code. And it was a very famous, iconic song called Disco Divane. Anyway, I digress. I apologize for that. So instead of G7 and all of these, he wants to float a group called C5. This is the power group. It will be composed of the US, Russia, China, Japan, and India. So he has defined the criteria was that, okay, these are countries with more than 100 million in population. There is no European country with 100 million people. So, I mean, there are other countries like Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria. I think Egypt has also reached 100 million, but not all 100 million. That's not enough. It's that these are also, if you look at purchasing power parity, the biggest economy is is China, followed by the U.S. Then India is number three. Russia is number four. So he's saying that these are the most powerful countries, these are the most powerful economies. So Russia, China, India, Japan, and the US should come together as a power group. So what is interesting is he's looking at it more as a geopolitical force than a geoeconomic force like G20 or G7. So G7 is essentially the core of the West. So that is why there's no Russia, China, or India in it, and I think they will not be invited to become part of G7. I mean, they are invited to attend it, but it will remain G7, even though in the past few years India has attended nearly every meeting of the G7. But what will this group do, the C5 together? Will they be able to become a cohesive force? Do they have common interests? C5 is just addition of US and Japan to RIC. So you take RIC and you take Quad and you throw out Australia from the Quad, and there you have this C5. So, what are the common interests? And of course, as always these days, America has an identity crisis. What are American interests? It's always Israel. And so the first agenda that was set for the C5 was trying to force Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel. I can understand India. India has these days become kind of a proxy for Israel. India going along with it. Maybe that's why he thought of India as part of C5. But why would Russia and China make that their priority, Israel and interests as their priority? And why will they play ball with the US on this? It's the Americans who are selling their soul to the Israeli lobbies. Donald Trump, who has got more than $200 million from Israeli pro-Israeli billionaires, uh, like Miriam Adelson and others who've given billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars to Donald Trump, and all these Republican and Democratic, is Putin and Xi Jinping are not taking money from the Israeli lobby, which will be happy to give them if they took the money, but that's not in their interest. So I think it's a stupid idea, first of all, and I'll tell you why it is. One, it sounds very stupid. Number two, if this is an important goal of creating a core five, then why is the US having such a tough time? Uh, why is the US having such a tough time with India? Why is the US imposing 50% tariffs in India? Why is the US trying to hurt India's interests, canceling H-1Bs, and all kinds of things? I have done several shows on this particular theme. You can go back and take a look at that as to how America, US, India, US relations have gotten worse and worse in the past few months since Donald Trump became president in 2025 January. So suddenly, why will the India cooperate or collaborate with the US, and what are the common interests pushing Israeli agenda? I mean, that is why India will overlook all the horrible things that the US has done to India. It kind of will why will the Chinese? What is there in it for the Chinese in Core 5? What is there in it for the Russians in Core 5? Nothing. What is there in it for India? Nothing. What is there in it for the US? Nothing. It's just about Israel. So it's a stupid idea, the Core 5 idea. It's an idea. They just took some money from Israeli lobby and then they floated it out and said, look, we tried. Give us more money. We'll try again. But there's something interesting that has happened on the Japanese side of the world, which tells you how stupid this Core 5 idea is. So, in the past 2 months, as you are aware, and I've talked about it in my past, in fact, I talked about it when I was in South Korea also. So, what has happened is the Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister, Sana Takashi of Japan, in a statement, in a speech, made a comment where she said that if Taiwan were to be attacked by China or were to fall to China, then it would be an existential threat to Japan because the Japanese islands, some of Japanese islands are very close to Taiwan. So it's the same kind of an argument that Poland keeps making, that Russia is attacking Ukraine, so we are next. It's like a threat to our existence. And so NATO should come and attack Russia. And the same kind of an argument Japan was trying to make, that if China were to attack Taiwan, then it's a big threat to the existence of Japan. And so the West, and especially the US, should come to its aid. And so she was trying to make these comments. And she made these comments just a few days after Donald Trump visited her in Japan, and basically made all these noises about how Japan and the US are great partners, etc. And so that really ticked off the Chinese. And I remember I was in Beijing around that time, and I was not talking about this issue at all. I was talking mostly about India-US relations, India-China relations, China-US relations. I was basically stuck in this triangle, occasionally talking about China-Pakistan relations. So they would then, people there, scholars and students, would prompt me and ask me these questions repeatedly. The Chinese were very angry with Japan as to why is Japan doing this, why is it increasing its budget, is Japan going to be the tip of the spear against the US and against them by the US, and so on and so forth. So then, about a week ago, they have been escalating. Chinese have started advising their tourists not to go to Japan. They're hurting Japan's. They're canceling buying stuff from Japan. So China has already started punishing Japan financially and economically for their particular statement, and have repeatedly demanded that the Prime Minister of Japan apologize and withdraw that particular statement, which she has not done yet. So the Chinese have stepped up the pressure by pushing their navy into the Japanese waters. And a few days ago, Chinese planes flying off one of their aircraft carriers, which means that China has moved an aircraft carrier in close proximity to Okinawa, where there is a major US base, or used to be military base in Okinawa. So the so the Chinese jets, when they were flying around Okinawa, the Japanese scrambled some of their jets to basically observe what these guys are doing. That's what Japan says, that we're only observing you because you are so close to our waters. Yes, you're in international waters, but you're too close to our shore, so we scrambled our jets. So when the Japanese jets went up, the the Chinese lock their radar onto the Japanese jets. So if you're flying and they are flying, it's fine. You can keep flying. This happens all the time between the U.S. and Russia, near Alaska, Russia and Japan, and China and Japan. So this is happening all the time. But what the Chinese did was basically they pointed their missiles towards the Japanese jets and locked on them. So it was just one button away from them shooting the Japanese jets down. And that has really upset the Japanese. They're very angry. And then the Chinese increased the pressure. So the Japanese said, "Oh, they issued a statement, basically a diplomatic statement, invited the Chinese ambassador and scolded him and demanded an apology, etc." So the Chinese respond by doing patrols now with Russian jets. So Russia and China together start doing Air Force exercises around Japan, basically bullying Japan and trying to scare Japan. And so, guess what happened today? The US used its bombers to fly with the Japanese Air Force. So now we have this whole tension going on with Russians and Chinese flying their jets, and the Americans and the Japanese trying to block them and doing some kind of a dance. They are about one button away from a war in which Japan and the US is on one side, Russia and China on the other side. This is the C4 of the C5. India, as usual, is missing in action. All big things that happen in the world, India is not there. India is in Jordan or in Oman. India is basically getting old Jaguars from Oman, Jaguars which nobody in the world flies now. Even Oman doesn't fly, retired all of them. Only India flies those archaic, because guess what? India is Atmanirbhar. India is making its own jets. Anyway, that's another shameful thing under Prime Minister Modi that India has to experience, that they're getting scrap jets for Indian Air Force so that old jets of India can get parts from this. So it's like saying that you have an old Morris from 1940s and the company is shut down, no one else drives it. So guess what do? You buy an old junkyard Morris so that you can cannibalize the parts. So anyway, India is not there, but these C4, these four out of these five are indulging in hostile action. Where is the common interest? How are they all suddenly saying, okay, let's stop fighting, let's all sit down here and see what we can do for Israel today to make Israel, I guess, what, stronger, safer, more prosperous? That's the whole purpose of C5, isn't it? So I think that's a very stupid idea. I had to get it out. And so it's a mystery. What the I think the most likelihood of the reason why Donald Trump called was to ask Modi to put pressure on Putin, and also maybe they talked a little bit about the trade issues. But if you notice, about a week ago, they thought that, okay, this is happening. And then the rice issue came up with Donald Trump threatening more tariffs on India because, according to the rice lobby in the US, Indians are dumping rice here, especially basmati. But I don't know what's happening with the negotiations. There is no transparency either on the Indian side or the US side. All we heard from the US main negotiator when he testified in the Congress is that India had made the best offer ever, but the US had not taken it yet. So the US is still demanding more, especially in the agricultural sector, which is India is very reluctant to give to the US. Anyway, so that is what I wanted to talk to you all about the mystery of this phone call. This is the third phone call that Modi and Trump have had since the tariffs were announced. India, along with Brazil, has the highest tariffs now at 50%, which in effect actually go up to 64%, I was told. So anyway, this is where we are, and if there are any questions, any interesting comments, I will be happy to address them. Once again, I want to remind you, I have a meeting for members only. So I see Jilani Sabun. We will talk tomorrow. Don't forget, 9:30 p.m. India time. The link is, if you go to YouTube channel, where it says videos, post, shorts, etc. So click the one that says post and you will see it. The first one is about this. I'm not going to post anything else till the meeting is over. Okay, let's see what comments are here. So the first one is from Jilani Sabun. Good evening to you. US approval to upgrade Pakistani F-16 fighters, also new F-16 missile system. What's your take on the missile systems that approved about 2-3 months ago? Amarak, I don't know, something Amarak it is. That's a small deal of about $300 million, but this is 640. So at one point, it increases the readiness of American of those F-16s. So the Pakistani Air Force definitely will be better prepared tomorrow than it is today because of this $640 million of upgrades. So it's not just that they are servicing, which is what they had given, about $450 million in the beginning of this year. This is to upgrade them and update the old. Those are 1980s F-16s. So they are about 45, 50 years old. But it shows that US and Pakistan are now strategically closer than they were before. We don't see any major complaints. The previous national security strategy of Donald Trump had criticized Pakistan for its role in extremism, but this one had not said anything negative of Pakistan and had not said anything positive about India either. So we will see what has happened, but right for now, we can say that Pakistan is having a good time. It has good relations with both China as well as with the US. It is something that India can't say. So, and then if you're following with what happened in Turkmenistan with Shehbaz Sharif gate crashing a meeting between Putin and Erdogan, and subsequently having a bilateral with Putin. We don't know what has come out of that meeting. I have not read any announcements from the Pakistani or the Russian side about the meeting, but it clearly shows that even Russia wants to have better relations with Pakistan. So for at the moment, Pakistan has better relations with all the major superpowers in the world than India, actually, even though India is closer to Russia, but I think Pakistan is right now closer to India or and China. Uh, the rice tariffs, Lava phone, they have not yet been imposed. So that's the question, right? Did Donald Trump call him to talk about the tariffs, or did he threaten to impose tariffs on the rice thing? But I don't think that will come from Donald Trump's level on the phone call. If Donald Trump was going to threaten, he would do it publicly through a Truth Social post or as an answer to a report. So if the threat is coming from the administration, then it will be between the negotiators behind the scenes. And because they're more likely to get India to respond positively if they do it behind the scenes than in public. Because if they do it in public, then India, if it agrees with the US, then the opposition party will say, Narendra, surrender. And so Modi doesn't want to fall in that trap. Uh, Kunal Yadav has a theory. Uh, yeah, I agree with you that this playing on both sides does not really work. Uh, it's like saying we go in both directions. It's very current. I'm non-binary. That's what strategic autonomy. But this is not strategic autonomy. I've written about it in Frontline magazine. You should see the article I wrote. It is about strategic dependency. India is not autonomous. It is, look how dependent it is, going to Oman to get planes, Jaguars. Is that autonomy? Countries which don't make their own weapons. There are very few countries in the world right now. The US, the Russians, and the Chinese more or less are autonomous. So you can see Russia is able to fight for 4 years and still fighting when nearly every part of the world has been shut down for Putin, except for India and China. And India is also very limited, exploiting Russia by buying oil at a low price and selling at a high price, buying it at a discount. Other than that, India has not helped Russia at all, not selling weapons or anything like North Korea has done. So, so yes, strategic autonomy, only those who can make their own weapons and carry a lot of power. Let's put it this way: strategic autonomy is directly proportional to the power that you have. As simple as that. The more powerful you are, the more autonomy you have. Yeah, the Epstein story, I don't know what to say about Epstein every day. I mean, it's so interesting. The whole country is so focused on Trump that a lot of Democrats are getting away with it. Clinton, I'm sure, has enjoyed the hospitality of Epstein. All of these Democrats are all um, Zionists in many ways. And so Epstein was an instrument of the Israeli intelligence. And so definitely you'll find more Democrats once those 95,000 photographs are released. I'm sure the Democrats are themselves being careful when they release those photographs. Prince, good morning to you. Uh, uh, Yeah, he was critical of Switzerland because he was very upset by the extent amount of deficit the U.S. was suffering, about $40 billion to tiny Switzerland. I think that has been the main reason why he's been upset. The Swiss were surprised when he imposed tariffs on Switzerland. They thought there was nothing that they would. They had not even bothered to negotiate with the U.S. I agree with you. India, the media in India is quite useless. So N2201 has a question. So far, Donald Trump has exempted pharmaceutical exports to the US from India. With regards to the pharmaceutical imports, there's about $10 billion of generic drugs, which are about 6% of US consumption in terms of cost, but a lot more in terms of volume. So basically, they are inexpensive generic drugs which come from India in very large volumes, but they're only about $10 billion. So for India, it's a big export for pharmaceuticals. So that has been exempted from tariffs. Trump is thinking of something that I don't know what it is. At some point, there was chatter that he might impose 200% tariffs on pharmaceuticals, but I guess he's not convinced that the US will be able to produce those drugs that cheaply. And healthcare is so expensive as it is. And there's a crisis of healthcare going on with healthcare insurance. And as far as electronics is concerned, uh, semiconductors and its connected issues are exempt at the moment. So the exports of iPhones to the US is not has no tariffs. So those are the two things that are going on at the moment. Uh, Thank you, LM. I hope you have a question. So we have a gift. That's nice. Uh, गुमान अगर कोई सवाल है तो पूछ लें. I will answer in this. I want my students also to see this, so that's why I'm doing this in English. I did an entire discussion on C5 on Satya Hindi with Mukesh, Dr. Mukesh. So please watch that. So some of the things that most of the things that I said in English just now, I said it in Hindi on Satya Hindi this morning. I think he just sent me the link. So let me find that link for you, and I can share that link uh, here, so you all can. For those of you who want to see those, uh, here's a link in the bottom. Uh, RIC is not going to become a reality, AK, because India didn't want to. If it is India which was the problem in RIC, it is India which is a problem in BRICS, because India wants to be both sides. So it is Russia and China are committed to de-dollarization, for example. They want to remove America as the dominant force, but India wants to go with America. In fact, if you notice, after Donald Trump became president, Dr. Jaishankar and Modi both said, we are not interested in de-dollarization. So how will you be with RIC if you are constantly undermining the agenda of RIC, like India was undermining the agenda of BRICS? So if BRICS was created as an alternative to G7, India is wanting to be in G7 also. So this desire to be in both places makes India kind of weak. It's not fully here, it's not fully there. So India is not fully with Russia, India is not fully with Europe. It upset. When Putin came, the Europeans got very upset. If you remember the article written by the three ambassadors in Times of India. So this, I mean, there's a terrible Hindi muhavara for those who understand. Dhobi ka kutta na ghar ka na ghat ka. It's India should be careful that it will be neither here nor there, which is at the moment it is. Neither China is happy with India, and the US is also not happy right now. Well, Pakistan has done several things. This is an answer to this question. Pakistan, the first thing that the Pakistanis did, which made Donald Trump very happy, was they caught the guy who blew up the suicide bomber who had planned the suicide bombing on Kabul's airport when the Americans were withdrawing in August 2021, and about 13 American Marines had died. So the main guy who had planned that, Asim Munir, found him. The Americans had no intelligence, but the Pakistanis found him, captured him, and handed him over to Trump. So the first speech, like the State of the Union speech that Trump gave in February, within a month of becoming president, in that he praised Pakistan for, and that's why they talk about Pakistan as a very important partner in counterterrorism. India is trying to paint Pakistan as responsible for cross border terrorism, but the US is projecting Pakistan as a partner in counterterrorism because it helped him with ISIS and Al Qaeda. So the US liked that, and after that, then Shehbaz Sharif and Munir praised in him for the ceasefire, gave him full credit. I believe that the US played a role in ceasefire. That's why they were on the phone constantly. Modi spoke with J.D. Vance before, and then how did Donald Trump know that the ceasefire has taken place and announced it before Modi could? So anyway, so Pakistan has given credit and India has not, and that has upset them. Plus, India has a lot of problems on the tariff side. India has, and I think Trump is correct when he says that India is the biggest tariff king, Maharaja of tariffs, as they call. So if you go and look at the free trade agreement with Great Britain, even then they are imposing taxes, 100% tariffs on British cars. The British people should basically kick out Starmer for accepting that deal. I did a whole show to show how Starmer, in desperation to get a deal with somebody, a free trade agreement, basically gave India a huge advantage and put Britain at a disadvantage. That deal is very good for India, not good for UK. No, the law does not apply to Modi. Modi did not campaign. See, the thing is, when Modi came to the US for the Quad summit after the UN, and he came here to Delaware, he had announced earlier that he was going to meet with Trump in Mar-a-Lago, and Trump announced that Modi was coming to see him. And so what happened was Modi then suddenly began to panic. What if Kamala Harris wins and I go and campaign for Trump or say something, or even if I just go to Mar-a-Lago and then Kamala Harris, who has already given Modi a lecture on human rights and minority rights in Los Angeles a few years ago, so he was worried about it. So he decided that he'll meet with both of them. And Kamala Harris did not meet with him. She did not give him any time. So when Modi realized that he's not going to meet with her, he decided that he's not going to meet with Trump also because he didn't want to put all his eggs in one basket. See, he's being strategic autonomy. I want to be with Modi, with Trump also. I want to be with Kamala Harris. And in the process, he's really pissed off Trump. And a lot of people think that that is where Trump began to get irritated with Modi. Uh, Thank you, LM, for your gift. Any other questions? Uh, no. The US China relations are very different. America sees China as an equal. And so, if you notice, Trump talked about G2, whereas they think of they think of China as a peer competitor. They don't think of India as a peer competitor. Thank you very much, Sajid. So please subscribe to the channel, share it with others. Guys, thank you for watching Conversations. Members, please come to the meeting tomorrow. And those of you who have not subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this with your socio-political network. Until next time, I'm your host, Muqtadar Khan. Take care.